Hey friends, it's Orf and thank you for stopping by, and today we have yet another album review, and today we're going to look at Childish Gambino's Bando, Stone, and the New World. Childish Gambino is back with his fifth and final full-length studio LP. This album of course shares its name with Childish Gambino's new survival horror sci-fi movie, and also serves as the soundtrack to the film. It seems like he really went all out with this final release, coupling it with his own movie, and honestly the singles got me excited for this one. But with it being a movie soundtrack, I was half expecting some of the tracks to be not as impactful as the singles, mainly because movie soundtracks usually have their share of songs that are kinda meant to serve as a background to what's going on screen and not the main focus. And to be clear, I have not seen this movie, I'm only focusing on the album right now, but with that said, I assume that expectation is somewhat true because this album incorporates a lot of different styles, tempos, and dynamic levels, and not in a way that makes the listening experience any better. Oddly enough, this album ends up being somewhat cohesive with its production. However, the actual flow of the record as an experience does remain a little bit messy. So as an example, here's my experience with the first leg of the record. So the opener is a certified banger. It's taking a high energy Childish Gambino track and throwing it directly into a survival horror sci-fi sound, and those two elements go together better than peanut butter and jelly. Seriously, the opener is awesome. And then we jump into Lithonia, which is a total change of pace because now it's a slow tempo rock jam. Then the third track, Survive, reminds me a little bit of Feels Like Summer due to the ambient synth in the background, and it slows the experience down even more with its minimalist beat and saxophone sections. And then the fourth track, Steps Beach, almost entirely removes the percussion, and we get a beautifully done acoustic number with very well thought out vocal sections. So at this point, we've dropped the dynamic level from a sci-fi hard style bass rap song with some vocal lines being borderline screaming, all the way down to a very soft guitar tune. And then immediately after this, we jump very abruptly into Talk My Shit, which, you guessed it, is a very straightforward trap song. A pretty solid one at that, but again, straightforward. And there is a short non-musical transition between these two tracks, but in a matter of about 20 seconds, not only does the tone and the dynamic level completely switch, but even just the lyrics go from this to this. So this disconnect does kind of permeate throughout the whole record, even though all these songs share a similar production style, and yeah, it gets a little bit distracting. And I know that it's most likely because this album also serves as a movie soundtrack. I'm sure that's what this can be attributed to. But to be very clear, very rarely would I consider any of the material on this thing to be bad. And actually, I would say the structure of this album, or I guess lack of structure more specifically, can actually be taken as a positive to many because this is Childish Gambino's final album. So with that said, at least this album does take influence from a lot of Donald's previous work, and this somewhat messy mixture of tracks at the very least almost guarantees that there will be something on here for everyone. So yeah, I guess you could also see this album as a celebration of all of the versions of the Childish Gambino project that have existed over the past decade, all culminating into Bando, Stone, and the New World. I think the first half of the album is a bit more interesting than the second, but there are some more bangers to mention aside from those first four tracks on the album. The first of those being In the Night, which incorporates this hard-style sci-fi synth bass once again with what sounds like a Latin-style beat, which surprisingly works fantastically. And the chorus, oh, the chorus is amazing on this one. No Excuses to me doesn't really need to be 7 minutes long, but I think this one nicely incorporates the album's vibe into the likes of a song that sounds more like a song from a movie soundtrack than any other, because there are sections that almost feel monumental because of this sort of orchestral style, and once again, the saxophone on here is top tier. Cruisin' is very enjoyable. The production, the verses, it all kind of gives me a sense of existentialism and panic, yet provides it in a kind of soothing way. I swear, it's so hard to describe, but it works. And Dadvocate sounds like Childish Gambino doing a 90s alternative style track reminiscent of Weezer's Green album, but with, I guess, more soulful vocals. And the rest of the tracks on here, whether they be based on more standard rap or some of Childish Gambino's earlier work, or even in the cases where there's something new on the table, are quite mid. But again, I don't find anything on here to be bad. So even though I wouldn't consider this thing cohesive, at least in terms of all the different genres that Mr. Glover is pulling from here, I think that both longtime fans and new listeners can find something on here to enjoy, even if it's not going to be the entire album. So I'm pretty comfortable giving Bando Stone a B, and if you've got some extra time to listen to this album fully this week, I would say give every track a shot, but putting this thing on shuffle will not really change the experience. So those are my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours. So throw them in the comments, and I will read everything, I promise. And with that said, I hope y'all have a fantastic evening, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, and see ya.